Well, good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Ben.
And
how are you?
Well, I'm okay. It's been a nice, relaxing weekend. Well, it hasn't, because we've been doing stuff, haven't we?
Yeah, we always do stuff.
We haven't been live on this channel, but we do have something coming that we're trying out for the other channel, 100, that's the number 100, Acre Swamp. So if you're not subscribed over there, then make sure you go and do that, because we've got a little bit of a video series, if you will, coming out. First episode's going to come out some point this week. It's got to be edited quite heavily. It was filmed over 2 nights, 2 very agonizing nights. And that's all I'll say from there. I've already got you, John.
Yeah.
So
and then we had one of our shorts blow up on the channel, didn't it?
Yeah, so we reported on the Dallas Air Show disaster, and if you've not seen that, go over to the channel and watch the 2 shorts on it from over there. But we had our first video break 100,000 views, didn't we, John?
Yep.
Which is very, very nice. I mean, doesn't make us a penny, no. It was simply straight up reporting on what was happening as the news broke. So, but it was a shock. We were trying to film part of the video, and we were just watching it, going, "That's going off." Oh,
yeah,
5,000 views, or 6,000 views, 7,000. It was quite exciting to see that occurring, I must say. But
and obviously, I mean, if you look at the video, you will see that the survivability chance was very, very low. So it was 2 World War II era planes that collided with each other. I think it was a P-63 King Cobra or something.
Yeah.
A B-17 Stratofortress, and basically cut it in half. And they were both very low to the ground anyway, so there was no time for anybody to do anything. Both piled into the ground and burst into fireballs. 6 reported dead. And certainly the first 2 angles, it almost looks deliberate, and there was a lot of speculation on Twitter about it, but the third angle that we put up later on does show that it's likely a pure accident, because if you look at the small plane, it's banking quite heavily to the left, and he's pulling up, so he actually wouldn't have seen the B-17, because if to see the B-17, he'd have to have looked through his own floor. You can't do that. So,
well, no, there's obviously
it's just an unfortunate coincidence.
Yeah, like you said, there's obviously a blind spot underneath these aircraft, and if you've got another aircraft within that blind spot, you're pretty screwed, unfortunately. I compared it to, and before we had our morning meeting this morning, and I showed you the crash in Shoreham here in the UK, here on the south coast, where a fighter jet was doing a display, did a loop-de-loop, pulled out too low from the loop. In fact, I believe
I would contend he went into that loop too slow, because as he went over the top, it was almost stalling. Yeah. And I think what's happened is he's basically lost all control, because he's been going that slow. He didn't have any. He didn't really have any effective control of the airplane after that. And
in an extremely cruel twist of fate, with fields either side of where he came down for miles, in fact, landed straight on the A27 road and killed 12 people. And you saw the footage. I showed you the footage. The plane went up in a massive fireball. The pilot did not eject from that plane, and yet has walked away from it. He's walking. He's been criminally prosecuted, because he shouldn't have been flying that plane that day. It wasn't his plane to fly, and he obviously was not, I think, qualified to control that aircraft. And unfortunately, it's caused the loss of 12 lives, and it's only recently been in court. I mean, obviously the guy had to spend a lot of time in hospital, but in a cruel twist of fate, he walked away from that fireball while 12 people in cars lost their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with that, Shall we move towards the list?
Well, before we move towards the list, it's Monday, and you haven't done the obligatory introduction, so that I can do the little Jingle Bells intro.
I would like to thank one and all for attending this episode 159 of Chasing Dissent Live. Thank you. Episode 159.
Sorry, I have to laugh because that is just such a happy rendition of Jingle Bells there. It's like ding 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 ding. You saw me, I was dad dancing, wasn't I, John?
Hey, I don't know, I wasn't watching you.
I feel offended.
Well, I'm sorry, but I've got other things to be looking at, you know?
What, like yourself?
No, the slides.
Oh, speaking of the slides, where do we begin today, John?
Well, the first slide actually needs no introduction, because the first slide, I think, sums up three things in one slide. Well, actually, it sums up four things, but it sums it all up very quickly, succinctly, and concisely. It's a joy, and it's all about FTX and missing billions and where it went and where it came from, because I think that slide pretty much does the job.
And I mean, that does appear on the surface to be what's happened here. Now, we're not going to guarantee this is what's happened, but the Democrats have been donating billions and billions and billions of dollars of taxpayers' money to Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky and Ukraine have been investing heavily with that money into FTX. And FTX, which has now gone bust and appears to have lost billions of dollars of its users' money, was the second highest donor to the Democrat Party.
Funny that.
Well, not FTX specifically, but Sam Bankman-Fried himself was the second highest donor after George Soros to the Democratic Party. So if you wanted to talk about laundering taxpayers' money through Ukraine, this does on the surface look like what's happened
very
here.
dodgy. Yeah, it looks pretty dodgy. It really does.
It does. Militant Mushroom says, what happened to the cash we stumped is what I want to know. So I'm guessing Militant Mushroom here is an investor through FTX, which was indeed the second biggest crypto exchange on the planet. Now, I've spent the morning attempting to educate myself on this story. I'm trying my best. I think I've got a grasp on it. And, I mean, looks like his 28-year-old Harry Potter-loving, amphetamine-loving girlfriend kind of looks like Gollum was involved in all of this quite heavily as well. Alameda Holdings. Anyway, let's move on. So we've got this tweet here from Zero Hedge. It says, insane story. Co-founder of maker DAO below makes this tweet and then his body washes up on shore a day later dead. New rumours say he connected FTX to a child-loving ring. He tried to expose FTX insolvency, and the Alameda's logo is a direct copy of a child-loving ring called Little Child Lovers. WTF. This is something to unpack here, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot in this, right?
Yeah.
Without any real evidence as such, but you know, the whole thing about the whole situation around this FTX and everything really just stinks. I mean, it stinks to high heaven.
It does.
This is I think the whole thing's I think it starts at the very top.
I completely agree with you, and before I do move on for it, turn your speakers off, John. Anyhow, let's read the tweet that this guy put out, right? He and we saw this tweet, didn't we? And we sort of dismissed it a few weeks ago. And
yeah, we did, yeah.
And he said CIA and Mossad and child-loving elite are running some kind of fornication, trafficking, entrapment, blackmail ring out of Puerto Rico and Caribbean islands. They are going to frame me with a laptop planted by my ex-girlfriend who was a spy. They will torture me to death. And then he is no longer of this earth.
He's dead, yeah.
So I remember having this conversation with you, and you and Adam were having this conversation, and you turned around and said, he's actually just a guilty party who's going to take his own life and sow division.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
That's what you said, and it's a mystery, isn't it? It is a mystery.
That could still be the case. That could be the case, because you don't know what the hell's going on here.
No, we don't, and that's the entire point of the matter. We don't know what's going on. This whole crypto mess is just that. It is a mess. And unfortunately, millions of people around the world are now financially tied into these exchanges, and they are at the whim of these exchanges. FTX was the second biggest, and it looks like a lot of what it was doing was illegal.
And what? Yeah, and what did I say?
Yeah.
What comes next?
Regulation. So Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says crypto must be regulated after FTX collapse. Now, the CEO of Binance, which is the biggest crypto exchange, guy that goes by the name of CZ, he's actually very open to regulation. And cryptocurrency in itself was created to be unregulated. It was created to be freedom. It was created... And now it just looks like it's going to be another regulated, taxable thing.
Because if you see, as a government, you can't have an unregulated, free method of transferring, wealth between people, because you can't tax it.
No.
So and you can't track the use of it, and so people could use it for bad things. They could use it for drugs, they could use it for arms smuggling, they could use it for anything. And there's no doubt that some of that has already gone on, but this is just, I mean, it's such a lovely setup, isn't it? Second biggest hub goes bust. Millions of people lose billions of pounds or
dollars,
crypto dollars, whatever. So millions lose billions. Government steps in and goes, well, for your safety, we've got to regulate it.
And I mean, if you look at SBF Sam Bankman-Fried's family, it gets deeper, doesn't it? His mother being the owner of one of the biggest Democrat donating super PACs going. It looks like this is so multifaceted, so multi-layered. It looks to me like, this was created with probably her in mind to become one of the biggest Democrat donating organizations. And it also looks like it could well have been a setup to create regulation. Now, it was billed initially, and people can correct me if I'm wrong here, but from what I am understanding, it looks to me like there was a quote-unquote war waging between CZ and Sam Bankman-Fried. These are the CEOs, owners of the two biggest exchanges, FTX and Binance. And it looks like this entire situation came about because CZ essentially created a bank run on FTX's personal token, FTT. So the token that they made and distributed and was backed by pretty much nothing. And CZ crashed the value of FTT, and that's what caused the chain of events that's led to where we are now. So, looking from the outside in, it looks like a war gone wrong, or if you're CZ, a war gone right. But, But is it by design?
That. Yeah, I think it's by design.
I mean, I was watching a YouTube earlier, I think it was by the name of Mobile Trades, who pointed out very, very, very poignantly, I think, that FTX are a part of and a member of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
FTX also have financing from the biggest hedge funds in the world, including
Although
BlackRock.
the WEF have pulled down that webpage now.
That's interesting. Because
pulled down the webpage, but you can still get it in the archive.
So this mobile trades guy seems to think that this all ties into their Great Reset. And this is on YouTube, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, see, the thing is, it's like someone said, you don't need a worldwide conspiracy. Right? No. You don't need a worldwide conspiracy because all these people's interests converge.
Yeah.
Therefore, and they all know each other because they're always talking to each other.
And they all work together.
So they don't need to be working in concert.
No. Because
their aims are all the same. So when these things happen by design or not, you know, and they take advantage of them, it's not, they maybe didn't go out to start like this, but because it's happened and they're all thinking the same way, they all take advantage of it the same way, and we end up getting shafted.
Yes, and so to continue on this path, it turns out that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, had a back door into the accounting of FTX so that he could move money or tokens or assets around at a whim without alerting anybody else. So he had his own way in so that he could do all of this. And it looks like he was loaning up to $10 billion in customers' assets to his other company, Alameda, run by Caroline Ellison, his girlfriend that looks like Gollum. And it looks like they made a bunch of reckless trades. They've lost all the customer money, despite the fact, in the terms of service of FTX, it clearly says, your funds and your assets are yours. We will not use them for anything. So what they have done here, in my view, is probably criminal. It's at the very least unethical. It's probably criminal. And then we had the night before last, all of the assets that FTX did hold still were hacked and stolen.
See, this has always been my worry about crypto and why I'm very loath to go anywhere near it, because basically it's even worse than a fiat currency because it's truly backed by absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it disappears. And the thing is, it's not coming back, you know. It's not as if you can go and print more of it because it's gone.
It's just lines of code.
Exactly. Once it's been mined and discovered, and if you lose that key, that part that you owned or that key referred to is never going to be seen again. It's never going to be used again. It's never going to come up again. It's just gone.
I mean, we've got Militant Mushroom here, says stolen by themselves, and it looks like the main culprits could possibly be Sam Bankman-Fried himself, his girlfriend Caroline Ellison, who is allegedly currently in Hong Kong and trying to get to Dubai, where there's no extradition to the USA, and one of their finance managers is also in the running by the looks of it. But then we had the saga of a couple of days ago where the most watched flight in the world was a private jet allegedly used or owned by Sam Bankman-Fried that went from the Bahamas to Argentina. Okay, so then they tried saying he was in Argentina. Now we have information that apparently he is still in the Bahamas and that he's being essentially looked after by authorities and auditors along with his father.
So he's under house arrest, effectively.
Effectively. That's the information that we've heard, though we've seen no photographic evidence of this at the time of recording. So it is one massive shit show. He's filed all of the companies for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So they're all going into holding. Then Binance stepped in a couple of days ago and said, we will buy FTX, and signed a non-binding agreement and said, don't worry, we're going to do we're going to help you out here if you've got money in there, and we'll make sure that everyone. And then Binance did their due diligence and went, fuck no, we're not going near that.
No, we're not.
No, yeah. And they backed out of that. So
yeah, because they've suddenly realized that they'd be in the hole to billions of dollars.
Well, exactly. Where has all of this money gone? That's the question. Because remember, these exchanges, no matter if you win or lose on crypto, the exchange wins. It's like a casino, because every trade you make, in or out, they are charging a fee, right?
Yeah.
So they are making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in those fees alone. Every time a trade is made.
If he's taking the money out, if he's actually realised the money and taken it out, then it could be anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, I also saw an article saying that FTX had bought $750 million worth of property in the Bahamas this year alone. So it looks like they're living large. And then we had the story come out that there were 10 of them all living in a house together, running these two companies, and all having mass orgies every night. And do you know what? With the talk of amphetamines, stupid amounts of money, thinking they're on top of the world, they can do what they want. I don't doubt it. I think that's exactly what was going on. These are kids between the ages of like 28 and 30. They are dealing with and having some of the biggest amounts of money of anyone on the planet. They think they're untouchable, and this is what happens. Millions of people the world over, or hundreds of thousands at the very least, were trusting their money, their assets, their cryptocurrency assets in the hands of children who allegedly liked drugs. What did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? Did you think it was all going to be smooth sailing and roses? I mean, Adam here in the chat says always use a hardware wallet, or I think they're also known as a cold wallet, right? That nobody else has access to. It's just yours. And I see his point. And whilst I'm learning more and more about crypto, I'm starting to see that you can't trust these exchanges. They are a casino. They are a gamble, and they could collapse at any point. I mean, they should be a pretty much untouchable financial model. But the people that are running them, the companies themselves are only as trustworthy and as good as the people that are running them, because they should be making enough money off them transaction fees alone to successfully run a very profitable company. But they get greedy, and they spend, apparently SBF spend ludicrous amounts of money on that TV advertising.
You know my thoughts on crypto.
I do. You think it doesn't exist, and therefore people should not buy into it. And people should stay away from it, because at some point the entire bottom's going to fall out of it. And I think we're seeing the start of that, by the way. I do, because Crypto.com, who I have an account with Crypto.com. Sometimes I put some of my money in there just because it takes a few days to get back out, and I need to save money over. So I put money in there, and then I withdraw it a few days later, just so that I've managed to move money across a few days. It's just one of my autistic ways of saving money for when I need it. But they've got a personal token, CRO, C-R-O, and the value over the last 24 hours has gone. And if they're once again leveraging assets against that token, like FTX were, because when FTX loaned Alameda $10 billion, what Alameda put up as collateral was FTT, FTX's token. And then when that goes down to zero, there's nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with CRO, C-R-O, and I'm hoping that Crypto.com, I've got no money in there, and I won't save money across that method at the moment, right? But I'm hoping CRO is not the same here, and that they're using it to leverage assets and holdings, because if they are, we're going to see it happen here. We might see it happen on Binance. We might see it happen on all of these exchanges, and then that'll be the end of crypto.
Yeah, well, I mean, the death knell's been sounded for crypto now anyway, because
regulation.
There's just going to be more and more calls for regulation, and how can you regulate a deregulated currency? It's a mockery.
Yeah, it is, and
yeah, it just becomes a mockery of itself, and then it just literally becomes a central bank digital currency, and it's no different from anything else.
I mean, I think the original idea by the original creator of BTC was noble, right?
Misguided, but noble.
Yeah, noble, because he doesn't hold it. He doesn't do anything like that. He put it out into the ocean and said, take it.
Yeah.
But
what he forgot to do is he forgot to take into the account that people are fucking bastards.
Yes.
And will do anything they can to cheat you. Especially when it comes to the amount of money that could be involved in these things. So these people have no scruples. And you usually find the people that do well off these things are, like certain other people that exist in this world, psychopaths. And I mean that, I don't mean that as in they're serial killers. I mean that as they are psychopaths, or at the very, very least sociopaths, right? Who have no feeling and no empathy for your fellow man. They are just out for themselves, and they will just ride roughshod over you without rancor, without any kind of compassion whatsoever, because as long as they get their way, they're fine, and they'll sleep well at night, like other people.
Hello, former health secretary.
Yeah.
Hello, former health secretary. How are you doing?
Yeah, I think these people are psychopaths.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and if you also think they are psychopaths, why not leave a like on this video? And if you are not already, please subscribe to the channel and click the share button, please, whilst we are live. Share us out into the ocean, into the ether, evangelize for us, whilst we talk to you about some more hilarious financial news. Let's move on, shall we, John?
Yeah. So, remember Guy said the European Union was all really well all bound together and pulling in the same direction. Well, it doesn't appear that's the case after all. So, talks of the EU budget for next year are suspended. Strong disagreements have arisen between EU member states and the European Parliament regarding, in particular, assistance to Ukraine. Oh no, shit, Sherlock. Accepting refugees. Well, Sweden's they've done away with it. I think Denmark are going down that route as well. And the spending that the EU funds. So there you go. So it's not going that well, Guy, is it?
Yeah. In your opinion, because some of this money will have also, some of the EU money, some of the UK money would have also gone into FTX, right? Through Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your opinion, is what the Democrats have done illegal?
Hey, I don't know.
They are using via this system, have been using, and we can't. This is just a theory.
I don't know.
Taxpayers' money.
Well, yeah, it's too hard to. You would need to know. You'd need evidence before you can make any determination, and we don't have that just now.
Well, that's why I said, in your opinion.
Yeah, well, right? I think there is an element of wrongdoing here. Yeah, certainly somewhere. Pointing fingers at the moment is difficult, but as I said at the beginning of the show, I think it all starts at the top.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It just stinks. It stinks to high heaven. The entire situation stinks, and it does look like it was maybe by design. I'm just saying it happened directly after the midterms. It's all very, very convenient. But with this situation here, you're absolutely right. The EU are not in agreement. I would imagine that Italy probably are standing. They're saying they stand with Ukraine, but I wonder if they're wanting Ukrainian refugees, whether or not they're wanting to donate a hell of a lot of money over there. I mean, have they not had enough? Have they not had enough in donations from all of these countries in military aid? Well, it's all gone in FTX now. Well, not all of it, but
you have to remember that prior to Russia stepping into Ukraine, Ukraine was one of, if not the most corrupt country in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, their
and
child...
it does have there's an appalling record on a number of things,
including...
among them being child pornography peddling, human rights, women's rights, the rights of Romanies and Gypsies. So they don't have a lot going for them. And there was a very strong connection between Hunter Biden and the big man.
Yeah.
And money laundering.
Yeah,
even at that level. So, I think anyone that thinks Ukraine is like,
a bastion of freedom,
a
bastion of democracy.
You're off your nut.
Now, just because we are saying this, we have to point out, and I have to stress this repeatedly, because if some arsehole takes a clip of us saying these sorts of things and goes, Russian sympathizers, no, you can think both are bad.
Yeah, of course they are. I mean, Ukraine is not the good guy. Russia is not the good guy.
No.
There's no good guys here, right? I mean, both those countries are going at it, and the people that are suffering are the normal, ordinary citizens. But I think, in real terms, if you want a country to fight for your freedom, you would not pick Ukraine to be that country.
No, you're absolutely right. And I don't understand this, because you see all this rhetoric, and you see all these hyperbolic statements from Ukraine's freedom is all of our freedom. We're fighting for all of us, and you keep seeing that, and I'm thinking, how?
Yeah.
How?
Well, actually, they're not. I mean, if we look at the next slide from the defense of Ukraine,
this Twitter account. I'm sorry, this Twitter account must be a troll. It must be.
But anyway, it comes up with this. Okay. I came, I saw, I conquered in Latin. And no, you didn't. So Russia withdrew from Kherson, and we'll go into that in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, but Russia withdrew from Kherson, and Ukraine moved back in. Right.
Yeah.
There wasn't any fighting.
Right. So there wasn't any.
There wasn't
taking.
any conflict here. There wasn't any taking. There wasn't any fighting. There wasn't any conquering done here. Russia moved out. Ukraine moved in. Right?
Yeah.
But Ukraine was so frightened that it took them 2 or 3 days before they moved
in case something happened.
Yeah, because they didn't trust the Russians. But the Russians have moved out of what was ultimately going to be a poor military position to take, right?
Right.
So politically, the Russians look bad politically, right? But from a military standpoint, they look smart, because they've avoided putting themselves in a situation that happened to Hitler during the Second World War, where he ended up with a pocket of one of his armies surrounded by the Russians, and eventually they just get ground away to nothing. So he lost a whole army, and that's what Russia's avoiding doing here. It's not putting its forces into an area where they could be ground away at.
Well, that's coming from this Substack here, which is being shared by Kim.com, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can't put my finger on Kim.com, right? I really can't, because I know Kim.com has a personal bias against the West, particularly, especially America.
Yeah, well, so would you if they tried to take away everything that you'd worked for,
including your freedom.
Yeah, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So but what I'm saying here is, whilst I'm not, questioning his bias, is what I'm saying is what he is saying, and not just in this tweet, but in many other tweets, is coming from that position. So we do have to remember that when talking about the things that he says.
Yeah, but it's not him that wrote the Substack,
No, it's not. So this, if you go to Kim.com's Twitter, you can see this here. It says the Western media is celebrating that Russia is abandoning Kherson. Ukraine is winning, they say. Wrong. It is simply a masterclass in military strategy. And I have browsed the Substack here, and it does mention what happened in World War II, and you're absolutely right there. And this very well could be what's going on here. But I can't place my finger on that, man, because some of the stuff that he talks about he seems to be right in some occasions, and then he seems to be very, very wrong in others.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Adams,
I'm not saying he's not a great. He's not like the arbiter of all knowledge, you know. I mean, he gets things right, he gets things wrong. He's made He's made quite a few mistakes in his choices in the past as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, on this occasion, I think he happens to be right. I think that this new military commander has made a military sound choice at this point in time. And what Russia's intending to do, I don't know. I really don't. But you know, the information coming out of Ukraine is still very much one-sided and still very much controlled, and you really don't know what's going on. You get the odd snippet of stuff coming through that's purporting to be from normal civilians, and they're not terribly complimentary about the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
But you don't know. You can't make a proper decision because it's one of the least reported wars I've ever seen.
Well, this
and
is
given
it.
the fact that we're in the most communicative times that we've ever had,
everybody is a journalist. Everybody.
Yeah, I can't understand why nothing is coming out unless it's, you know, from accounts, you know, parody accounts like Defensive Ukraine, which has already been caught a number of times with its pants down.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and there are also some very questionable things that account is doing. I don't know if it's later on the list, but they're celebrating some very questionable things.
I haven't put it on the list, but yeah, I think they are breaching Twitter's terms of service all the time.
I agree.
And they've not been taken down because they are celebrating and glorifying violence
and death.
Yeah, they are.
They are celebrating death. And remember, when it comes to the Russian army, right? Yeah, okay, some of what they are doing may well be wrong, but they are still just ordinary people being ordered around and being told what to do. And, you know, they've been essentially during their training programmed to blindly follow orders. They are essentially drones.
That's what soldiers are told to do, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you celebrate the death of 80,000 people, well, allegedly, because they've allegedly taken out 80,000 people, yet there's not one single piece of mobile phone footage to confirm any of this, like you say. I think you are indeed glorifying violence, glorifying death, and breaching Twitter's terms of service. And even under Elon Musk, I think that this is, I think it's
reprehensible.
You don't see Russian officials tweeting out going, "Oh, we have killed 40,000 Ukrainians. Look at all."
You don't, and you can't say that they don't have accounts on Twitter because they still do. Like Lavrov's still got an account on Twitter.
Yep.
I think what Ukraine is doing, even if they're claiming it's just propaganda, it's still reprehensible because it is glorifying death and violence. It really is.
It is. And
it's a clear breach of Twitter's terms.
And
but
once
they
again,
seem to think it's fine because in their minds, Russians don't count as people anymore.
Well, yeah.
Because what they've done is they've normalized it by dehumanizing the enemy, which is standard practice, right?
Yeah.
So you refer to them as pigs or bales or whatever, you know, so you dehumanize them so it's okay to kill them. And that's not what we as normal, you know, civilized people should be doing in this day and age, because war is wrong no matter how you look at it, no matter who started it, and no matter what your intentions are. If you have to resort to violence, then you failed. And I'm not just looking at Russia here, I'm looking at the USA, because it resorts to violence far too quickly. You know, and for a country that's had 202, I think it is now, military incursions on foreign soil since 1945, you're resorting to violence way too quickly because you don't need to do that. There are other ways of doing things.
Yeah, no, you're...
You know, I mean, maybe Americans will disagree with me, but I think it's time that we all changed. You know,
I agree with you.
Stop this rhetoric about, military might being right and stamping on the face of communism, whatever. Because if you want to start going down this route and you end up back in a Cold War situation with Russia and China and whatever, then it's not going to help anyone, and it's certainly not going to, well, it might help the military-industrial complex, but it won't help the regular people. It's not going to help our economies.
No, I completely agree with you. And once again, we will say there are no good guys in this or any of these situations, right? There are simply manic rulers, people who are supposedly elected in most cases to represent their people, putting their own people, sometimes sending them to the slaughter. And for what?
Yeah.
And for what? Somebody's ego at the end of the day. That's what wars are essentially about, right? It's one big ego power play, and it's ridiculous because it doesn't just affect the soldiers on the ground. It affects, and these are the people we've always tried to give a voice to, because we are those people, the disenfranchised normal people just trying to get by in the world, just trying to have a normal life, trying to have even a quiet life. And I know that sounds a bit hypocritical because we sit here talking to you all of the time, but at the end of the day, these people's lives are affected by the decisions of people that are in charge. These people's, I mean, how many civilians in Ukraine are dead? How many?
Yeah, but
and exactly. For what? For what?
We don't know.
And for what? It just does my head in. And it looks like GB News, looking at this tweet, agree with our assessment from earlier.
Yeah, I think I got this slide slightly out of kilter. It should have been further up.
It's fine. I think we segue into it quite well, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So GB News have pretty much agreed with what we are saying, and we are agreeing with what they're saying. It's a very, very dodgy situation that's going on with FTX.
It is a very dodgy situation, and I can only hope that the rumours of Sam Bankman-Fried being watched by auditors and authorities is true, because if this guy is able to get where he allegedly wants to go, which is Dubai, which is where Caroline, his girlfriend, is trying to get to right now from Hong Kong, allegedly, there is no extradition with the USA, so they will live like kings and queens on your money if they manage to make it there. So let's hope that does get foiled, because, there are bad guys in this world, and it does seem like they are two of them. So...
yeah.
Just...
Speaking of bad guys...
Yes.
Beth Turner doesn't like Matt, does she? And I think with good reason.
I think with good reason too. So we have a tweet here from Beverly Turner, who is now a part-time host on GB News, was a commentator and used to appear on things like This Morning. I don't know if she still does. But she says, my new parenting challenge, telling my children that hashtag Matt Hancock belongs in jail, while they say how funny he is and how much they like him on I'm a Celebrity. He's going to win over the public. I think he already has.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? It's easy for psychopaths because they don't have any remorse, and they don't need to show remorse because they don't think they did anything wrong, and they really don't care.
So I think there's evidence.
He does, while he doesn't care what people think about him, what he does care about is he cares about his reputation, because he wants. He can't understand why people wouldn't, look up to him, because he is the man that saved them.
Yeah, and that's what his book's going to portray as well, right?
Yeah, but I mean. He saved you. He saved you all from...
So I think there's evidence.
He saved you all from what? I don't know.
I am watching this.
There's no data to say that he saved you from anything.
Well, exactly. But I am watching this for research purposes, to see how they portray him, to see how they play him. Well, so I can report on it every day for you. And last night, so the night before last, there was a public vote, not for a trial, but for camp leader, and this person gets to tell the camp what to do, and assign chores, tasks, and things like that. And it was down to two. The two had to go head to head, and then the winner got to become camp leader. So the two with the most votes for this role, and it was Matt Hancock versus Mike Tyndall. Matt Hancock is now their camp leader. He won the challenge. But the public voted for him to be in that position of quote-unquote privilege.
Yeah.
Now tell me that's not him winning them over.
Well, of course it is. And I think, Bob Moran's tweet here, or his cartoon here, hits the spot on this occasion, I think.
Yeah.
But the tweet above it is even more concerning, because as a lad said at work yesterday, he's a nice guy and we should just forget what he did in the pandemic. Should we? Should we really?
No, and it's Ben rant time, because let's face it, I've spent 2.5 years, right, for nothing in return, sitting here and trying to... initially what we did was we did my show, Revolution from a Shed, so that we could all come together and we could try and make sense of what was going on around us, and all of us who felt disenfranchised and who felt like what was going on wasn't correct could have a voice together and we could have a discussion, a conversation. I don't know if you remember, I had a phone in, and people used to phone in very distraught, very upset, very angry, because they were not able to go and see relatives in care homes, were not able to go to funerals of relatives, because they'd lost work, because they'd lost jobs, because they'd lost businesses, because they'd lost everything. They were not allowed to hug their mum, their nan, their granddad, their kids in some instances. Kids were left alone in hospitals to die. Parents had to watch it happen over an iPad. These things happened at the direction of that man. You had to socially distance with 5 of you and not hug at a funeral, while the rest of your family got to watch back home on an iPad, because that man was signing the orders that did that. That's the reality of the situation. And no amnesty, nothing. That man needs to know what he did, right? And the thing is, do you know what really, really gets me the most? Is the way ITV are playing it. They are saying that Matt Hancock, his only thing that he needs to apologise for is that he broke social distancing rules and had an affair.
No.
And that is what they are hamming up. That is what they are playing up. That is what they are saying he did. To people all over this country who suffered because of what he did. This is not going away.
Well, the problem is, Ben, it is going away, because he's effectively he's mitigating it right now in the minds of most people in this country.
And right? ITV are letting it happen. They're enabling it.
Well, of course they are, because what have the mainstream media done throughout the last 3 years? They've enabled everything, right? So he's played a blinder here. He's played a blinder.
And I mean, like I say, people like us have sat here day in, day out, having conversations with people, trying to all keep ourselves collectively sane, trying to make sense of what was going on here. If I didn't have you people, if I didn't have these discussions, if I didn't have you, John, if I didn't have these conversations, I would have gone right off the deep end.
Yeah.
So I have.
Anyway.
I'm just saying that this man is wholly responsible for that mentality, that mental health, that breakdown in society. Mm-hmm. He is. He's solely responsible for it. His name is on the paperwork, and he can't be forgiven. He can't be forgiven. I won't allow it.
But he will. Yeah, you won't, but he will be.
Well, it looks like a scorpion tried to have him anyway.
Yeah, and when I saw this, my first thought was, I hope the scorpion's all right.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I hope the scorpion, probably tried his blood and maybe just sort of passed away there and then on the spot. I'm just saying. But this man, he's clearly on the spectrum as well, right? And that's coming from someone on the spectrum. He's not on the spectrum. He's a psychopath. You think?
Yeah, he is a psychopath.
I think it's a bit of both.
There is no doubt in my mind. There is no doubt in my mind he is an out-and-out psychopath.
Remember that.
Everything he does is an act. Everything he does is calculated. Right?
Well, he's a politician.
Yeah, but everything he does is an act. Yeah. You saw him when he was trying to cry on Breakfast TV.
Oh God, it was so good.
He's a classic fucking psychopath.
Natasha in our chat says Scorpion didn't make it, didn't stand a chance. I think she could be right. But
she might be.
But she's also said, look, nice and simplistic for the gullible people, and the public enabled what he did. Both of these things ultimately true, but I can see right through what ITV are doing. I can see right through it.
Yeah, you can, but most of the people don't have a critical thought in their head because they still believe that the government wouldn't put them into danger and wouldn't do them a bad turn. They think the government's out there to help them.
And speaking of somebody who's learning that lesson the hard way, staunch conservative commentator Sophie Corcoran, who I believe is still a teenager, so she's still got a lot to learn here. But
she's starting to come round, though.
She said we should all protest tax rises because, let's face it, taxation is theft. I wouldn't mind tax rises, but when you are raising taxes here, when people can't afford their bills as it is, when working people are being taxed into poverty to give it to Ukraine or 11 billion to other countries for climate, you can piss off. You know what? That is one of the most correct things that Sophie Corcoran has said so far.
Indeed it is.
Indeed it is. I mean, the girl's got a lot to learn. She's very naive. Right, she's got that blue check mark not because she purchased it, but because it was given to her by Twitter.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
But I don't know where she really rose from. But she started appearing on like Talk Radio and then GB News. I think she works for GB News.
Yeah,
right?
I think she does. But even so, she's maybe starting to see the light now.
I think you're absolutely right. The Tories are not your saviour. No government's going to be your saviour. But the Tories certainly are not your saviour, neither are Labour. They are going to... They caused the current economic crisis, you have to remember that, with Matt Hancock's policies, with Matt Hancock's signature. They caused this current economic crisis.
And with the full support of the opposition. In fact, the opposition were calling for more restrictions.
Absolutely. Natasha says, fed up of being told what I can and cannot do. Feel hemmed in and resentful. And do you know what? I know so many people who are feeling that way. I do. It's sad. It's sad that people have been pushed there. And I mean, you know, the prescriptions of antidepressants are through the roof in this country. Highest they've ever been. Wonder why. Let's move on to a lot of people who are probably depressed right now, and that's ex-Twitter staff / current Twitter staff. Look at this tweet.
I know. It's ridiculous. So Musk has decided that he's stopping free lunches in the canteens in Twitter HQ because nobody's using them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because nobody was in the office anyway. And secondly, it was working out because of the few amount of people who were actually using or having something at the canteen. It was working about $400 a serving because of everything else, all the infrastructure that had to run behind it. So he says, no, he says, we'll make them pay or they can go out for lunch or whatever.
Do you know what, rightly so? Because if you've seen...
It's not as if Twitter's in the middle of nowhere, you know?
Oh.
And this guy thinks that Musk is going to starve them. How does that work? I mean, how many people go to their work, right? And get their meals paid for them?
Well, let's break down this tweet. He fired 3/4 of the employees. No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. That's wrong. Immediately. Okay. That's not true. He fired around 50% of the employees, absolutely, and he's been hiring some of them back as well, right? Now he's planning to starve the rest of them. He's failure incarnate.
Yeah. That's hyperbole.
Hyperbole. I think hyperbole is an understatement. I think this guy, Andrew Wortman, is an absolute moron. I think he's a moron.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I like you said.
And someone else says, you know, people don't read things and they don't understand things properly, do they? Because someone else goes, it's no wonder Twitter wasn't making money. It was costing $400 for each employee to have lunch.
Well, exactly.
No, But that's not what was said. That's
no, it wasn't.
What it was.
What was said was that so few people were using the free lunch service that anytime one actually got served, it equated to around $400, meaning how much sodding food were they wasting?
Well, yeah, because the highest usage apparently of capacity was 1 or 2 days at 25%, right? And most days it was never above 10%.
So what you're telling me is they were wasting between 75 and 90% of the food every day, because they
probably. Yeah.
I've seen how Twitter San Francisco's lunch service works, and it's cooked, it's there, and you just go and get what you want, put it on your plate, right? Yeah. So it's cooked and it's there.
So most of the food was getting wasted.
Yes.
Or I don't know if they would. I don't know if they took it out and gave it to homeless people. I doubt it, but they might have. Well, anyway, that's how it worked.
Well,
crazy
for feeling so hungry.
I know.
So, but like you said, right? Nobody's using this, and even if he charges, let's say $5 a portion, have you seen the quality of food on display at Twitter? Because I have. It's almost gourmet. It's bloody. Yeah. It's good food. And
I'm sure it is.
But let's look at the Houses of Parliament, for example. They charge MPs for food. Oh, yeah. It's very cheap. It's very cheap, but they
overly
charge.
Subsidised.
Yeah.
Overly subsidised.
But they do charge. So
with whose money?
Oh, our money, of course. But if it's good for the MPs, it's good for the twits, as far as I'm concerned. If the MPs can even pay a slight portion towards their food, so can the bloody twits.
Oh,
Speaking of twits, what a right said Fred saying here. Let's have a look here.
Well, do you remember these death pods that came up? Remember we saw them a few months ago in Switzerland?
Yes.
Right. Well, apparently, some scientists has backed them as a scheme for Scotland.
Well, John, you've got a way out now from your look. Once your shame passes for appearing in Redcon 1, there's a way out, John.
Anyway, but I'll be honest, this was all foreseen, wasn't it?
Of course it was. I mean, look what they're doing in Canada.
Yeah, but it was all foreseen, because if we move to the next slide, this was in Futurama years ago.
Of course it was.
Because Futurama and The Simpsons are both done by Matt Groening, aren't they? And he knows everything.
Well, he does seem to know.
He's got to be a time traveller.
I mean, though, remember the suicide booths in Futurama, Bender used to use them for sexual pleasure.
Yeah, aye, okay, but it's just a classic.
It is a classic.
And speaking of classics, what's our friend Uncle Joe saying?
Well, actually, I want to give you an update here, because it's looking possible that the Democrats could take the House as well.
Oh my God, no! So then we're going to have egg on our face. I mean, how can it take the superpower of the world a week to count votes?
I believe
a week.
Arizona's still counting.
That's what I mean. How can it take a week?
I mean,
they voted last Tuesday.
But look what Florida did, right? Florida.
I know.
Yeah, but in the last 7 days, they've voted. They've counted the votes. Victories have been declared. They've had a hurricane. They've done hurricane relief. They've put the power back on. And in all of this time, Arizona still can't declare Kari Lake the winner, because they're looking for votes to say she isn't.
I know.
No, I'm not saying that there's any cheating going on. I will not say that on YouTube. I will say that there are many people that believe that there is, and maybe have a look at what they are saying versus people who are saying it's not true. But Uncle Joe saying here, Tuesday was a good day for America and a good day for democracy and a strong night for the Democrats, and Corn Pop was a bad dude. Come on, man. So, fact. In 2022 midterms, Democrats lost fewer seats in the House of Representatives than any Democratic president's first midterm election in the last 40 years. And you got more votes than any president in history ever, didn't you, Uncle Joe? Didn't you? Yeah.
Even though more people voted than were alive, well, than technically could have.
I need to see those numbers before I can fully agree with that statement. But
I need to take a short break.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, John needs to take a short break, ladies and gentlemen.
I shall return.
How long?
Do you want to? Well, do you want to call it? Because that's us nearly at the end anyway. That's us done an hour.
So, would you like to end the show here?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. John.
So I'd like to thank you one and all for attending this episode 159 of Chasing Dissent Live. It's been great for you.
It's definitely been great for you, and once again, thank you all for coming to watch.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 2 p.m.
Same time, same place.
Love you all. Bye for now.
Bye.
Got time for this evening, so it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
I'm playing with my bust.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy.
You're a what?
A pianist.
Mwah! Good night, everybody.
You have been a delightful audience. Still. Good night. Thank you.
Oh, my bottom hurts. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob.
Oh, I did love that hamster so. I took it into bed with me every night, you know.
Good night, everybody.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have to go now. I've been standing here for a very long time. I think the end of the show must have come and gone.
There you go. That's our solar system. You forgot Uranus. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening. You've been very nice to work.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.